Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle or triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. I want to thank all the ladies and gentlemen who are already jumping on live. If you could do me a huge favor, and if you could share this video on whatever platform you are on so we can get more eyes and more ears on the awesomeness that we're about to talk about today. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Sarah Kajani. Sarah is a child of an immigrant and grew up with the mindset of a minority. Despite this, she was always drawn towards careers in communication. Sarah has found her joy while working through NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, embodiment practices, and Reiki, and so much more. Using her own journey, she now helps people peel back their layers, reduce anxiety, and find their voice. Sarah is an author in I Speak for Myself, which I just think is phenomenal. I hope to hear more about that. And is certified NLP trainer. I am so excited to speak to this awesome lady today. Welcome, Sarah. How are you?
Good. I am good. It's 4 a.m., but I'm ready to jiggle.
I love that. Do you want to share that story of 4 a.m.? Because you shared it with me.
Oh, yes. When I was applying, I looked at the time zone, was like, yeah, this is fine. I'm in the US. Like, it didn't even like register in my head. It's a central time zone. I was like, yeah, this is great. 2 p.m., like 3 p.m. It's great. And then got to Malaysia and was like, wait a second, that's 4 a.m. But here we are.
So it's 3 here. So that's like an 11-hour difference?
13-hour difference. It's 4:30 here.
So you're in the future.
I'm in the future.
What? I love that. Do you have any fortunes for me?
What I can tell you is tomorrow will be a fantastic day for you, and you will feel just so much good vibes and abundance, and all you have to do is receive it. That's it.
I love it. I love it. I am taking it all in. Thank you for that, fortune teller. Well, listen, Sarah, I am so excited to have you here. I know we have a acquaintance in so as far as Rebecca, the Spark Joy lady. I love having her on. What a calm vibration she has, right?
Oh yeah, totally. She will zen you out in a whole different way.
I love it. How do you know her?
We met in 2019 at a tarot workshop. We met then, but we didn't keep in touch. And then we would meet at our at the same girl who created the tarot deck. We would meet again at her house, and then from then on, we were just inseparable.
Wow. Yeah, I reached out to Rebecca cold because she posted, I think it was on LinkedIn. She just posted something that was like inspirational. I was like, this girl is my jam. So I reached out to her cold, and what a fantastic lady. But I'm so excited to sit down with you after reading so much about you and all the goodness that you're bringing not only to the world now, but just your story in general. I'm just really excited to kind of dive in and hear about some of this journey. So this podcast is all based around storytelling and this concept of, things and have been through things that I've never been through. And I've been through things and know things, that you don't know. And this idea of, if you share some of your story, if you share some of your knowledge and some of your value, some of the things that you've learned along the way, then other people listening can then fill in those little holes in their life where they're stuck or they're not able to move forward because they're missing this piece of knowledge that you hold. So I love to kind of just share stories, mindset, how you did it, 1, 2, 3s, that got you to where you are now, in order to help others.
Okay.
Cool.
I love it. Let's get started.
Yes. So my first question is, what is a story or a pivot that you had in your life, that you can share with us, that you learned from?
Oh, okay. There are so many, but I guess the most recent one that really hit my core was okay. So growing up, I didn't really have a voice when it came to my family. Being an immigrant and being a daughter of an Indian Muslim, it was very different. It was very conservative. So when I was trying to do a career in communications, it was unheard of because you only filled 3 buckets, which was like medicine, law, engineering. That was it. Maybe you did business, and that was like the 4 buckets. So I was totally outside of that. And so when I wanted to pursue my career in communications, everyone was like, oh my God, that's never going to happen. Even the community was not rooting for me. So I had told myself this motto that success is the best revenge. But what I didn't know was that my unconscious took that and wrapped it in all of this other programming that I had had when it came to how I viewed men, when it came to how I felt that women would get ahead. Because when I looked at the role models of who was actually getting what they wanted when I was younger, growing up, and then also in college, it was women who acted similar to like sirens, where they would like lure what they needed and then they would just kind of like destroy everything in their wake. So when I took in that motto, I didn't realize that my unconscious took that and wrapped it around everything. So even the way that I was living my life, I was doing that. I was being the siren and I was getting ahead in my career. But in the end, my heart was ice cold. So when I moved to Malaysia also, which was like a complete, just like, let me throw a dart on a map, never Googled the country, never been here, didn't know what to expect. I just was like, I don't want to live in a country where I don't have family or friends. And so like, let's see what happens. How long can I survive? And so I came here. I was only supposed to be here for a year. While I was in Malaysia, my heart started melting. I started to feel all these emotions I had never felt before. And then later on, as I met, and had relationships with people and with men, my heart started melting more and more. And I met someone who was like my mirror. And so then I started to realize all of this programming that I'd never known. And so when I reached this level of understanding my programming, I felt like I had just reached and gotten everything out of my heart. And now I feel like all I have is my truth. I have trust in myself, and I've learned that everyone that I have been in my past lives, in the sense of in this life, but like in generations, is that they are now evolved into someone that I can actually trust and hold on to. And now I operate from a place of love. So now I've changed that model to like, I love, I serve, I give, and I receive. So that when my unconscious takes it, it wraps it in a very beautiful way so that I can give value now. So that was really gutting because I had never gone so deep and I never felt so free in realizing it. And I just, and at the same time, like I've hit this rock bottom in my life where I don't have any money. So it's like all I have is whatever's inside of me. And that is just completely liberating and also beautiful.
Wow. Look at that. Yeah. So you really just threw a dart for real? Like you're just like.
No, I didn't really throw a dart, but so my family likes to procreate. And I went to college where we had a 40% international population. So when I was choosing countries, it was really hard to find some. And I didn't want to do Europe because I felt like it'd be too similar of an experience to America. I wanted to do something that would really challenge me, but where I didn't have to learn a new language. So like the only countries left were Japan and Malaysia, but I really wanted to stay in marketing. And so Japan is really hard to enter into in the business world unless you're a teacher. So I chose Malaysia, and then I've been here for 8 years. Now I'm engaged to a Malaysian. So yeah.
Wow. So you were just going to try it out for a year, just like, let me hang out and
Yeah.
just chill
Yeah, because New York was my dream city. Like New York was my ultimate goal. So when I got there and after 5 years of being there, I was like, you know what? I feel it was a multitude of things, but in that moment, I felt like I needed to get out. And I'd always loved working abroad. I'd worked in Dubai, I'd worked in Pakistan. So I'd always enjoyed working abroad. And I really wanted to continue to give back to a new country and also receive something that they could teach me, because I love that cultural exchange. I feel like there's so much like knowledge and wisdom that you receive as you move in and interweave into different cultures. So at the time, that's the strategy I used. But what I realized is, I think it was more my intuition that just chose a country that felt like now you'll be able to move away from all the noise from your family and friends, and then be able to hear your own voice and figure out what it is that you need to figure out.
Yeah. So 2 things. The first one I want you to expand on a little bit is success is the best revenge. Who are you trying to get revenge against?
So let's fall back. When I was growing up, the way it worked was, one, you were taught how to be better by comparing. So I lived in a community that was beautiful. Like our religious community of Ismailis is great in the sense of, there's a lot of camaraderie and stuff. But at the same time, instead of it being a community of cooperation and creation, it was a community built on comparison. You were always compared to somebody else. And so everybody wanted their kid to be looking better, right? So sometimes they would put you down. And they would do it in a very like Southern way. So you would not know what was actually going on. But that's how I was raised. So one, I was being compared to. Two, everything that I wanted to do, like people, it was very different. It was really new. And so people didn't understand, especially coming from a woman. So you didn't have that authority or that independence where you could yield what you wanted to yield, because everything of that was given to men. So I was that different person, because I would keep rebelling. Like you told me like women can't stand under a tree, I would be the one standing under a tree. If men were playing football in like the nearby parking lot, I would be in that parking lot. I wouldn't be playing football, maybe sometimes I would, but I would be standing there like, you're not telling me no. So it was a combination of that. It was a combination of also the fact that I got bullied in the same community and I lost all of it, my self-confidence, everything. Like I was being told to fit this mold of perfection because I couldn't be who I wanted to be. And so you were always having your community interests put first. And so that meant that my own opinion, my own interests couldn't be followed. So I was completely lost in this mixture. And I just felt like if I was successful, because that's everything that everyone looked at. So if I was successful, then everyone have to change their mind. They would have to look at me in a different way. And so that is why I took it. And that's why I said that.
Wow. Have you always been that way? Kind of rebellious? Or what?
Yes, 100%. 100%. I was the craziest child to have raised.
What did your parents say about you moving?
So, okay, well, this is funny. The way my family works is we operate in a very business mindset. So growing up, even when we were 13, we had to have a 5-year business plan, and you had to have it ready to go, ready to show. At that time, I wanted to be a doctor. So I had like my 10-year, 15-year plan. I was like, here you go. This is everything I'm doing. So every single time you make a change, you have to like pitch it to the family, and then everyone kind of sits, they understand, they absorb, and then you go from there. So when I moved into communications, I moved from a 5-year plan to a 1-year plan. So every year, we would assess it, and then you have goals, you have calls, like how far are you from achieving what you wanted? And my dad didn't understand that path. He was a really great man, and like he is, and he didn't understand because it wasn't an industry that he was in. So he was like, I can't help you. I need to know, like, how do I help you? Like, he was struggling with that. So that's why I was on the 1-year plan. So when I was moving, I had to pitch it to my dad. I had to be like, okay, so I don't remember exactly what I said, but I do remember the call and where I was on the streets of New York. And I told him, I was like, listen, this is an opportunity for me to see a different side of the world. And I think I can be a bigger fish in a smaller pond, and we'll see how my skills, move abroad. And I really want to give back in my own way, because we're very service oriented. So even when I was doing my project in Pakistan, it was for a specific university under the Aga Khan Foundation. So my dad works with them heavily. It's also part of the Ismaili group. So each member in our family actually works in the Aga Khan Foundation. So, and then after that, my brother and I decided, okay, every couple years we'll dedicate and do some type of service work somewhere in the world. So I told my dad, like, okay, this is my way of giving back. There's going to be something that I'm going to do. There's going to be some way I can like build human capacity, enable human society there. So let's see what I can do there. So that's how it worked out.
Wow. You know what? I've never heard, I don't want to say I've never heard, I have heard, but how does a 13-year-old write up a 5-year plan?
I don't, like I think
paper, like a 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh no, you do like a PowerPoint. You do a PowerPoint. I mean, yeah.
That's so cool.
I think our 5-year plan, I don't even remember having a PowerPoint, but I remember just saying it out loud, because at that time I wanted to do medicine. And that was like, you had your clear path ahead of you. And my dad knew that path. He's a physician. My entire family is physicians. So we all know that path. We understand that path. So we just had to vocalize that, and then that was fine. But if you have a fiance coming into our family, they have to present their 5-year plan, especially if they don't have their master's degree. So it's really funny to have seen my older siblings, like fiancés, come in and have to present theirs. It hasn't, like, after the first fiance that came, like my first brother-in-law, after that, the plans kind of like dissipated. You just had to talk about it, and you had to make sure that you had some form of education. So education is completely a strong point in our family. You don't have, like, obviously they prefer to have a college education, but just in case you don't, it doesn't matter. It's just, how are you continuing your lifelong learning? Because everybody in the family does that. So, what classes are you enrolled in? What are you doing just to kind of keep yourself up to date?
Beautiful. Are you planning on doing that with your family? Like, as you?
I think, yes, there are certain values from my family that I will definitely hold on to. I think education is important, but I don't think it has to be in the standard form of how we look at education. I feel that there are certain things that I would probably put up as more relevant in terms of EQ. And I think, yes, the values of service are huge and will continue to be in whatever family I raise. And also this lifelong learning concept. I think that's incredibly important. And for me, it's figuring out what you love and being the best at that. And showing up. So I think it's just kind of taking or shedding off those layers of baggage that exist in my family from what they've been carrying on for generations, and being able to hold on to the core values.
Absolutely. You said, I found my mirror.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So when I met my fiance, I have to remember to say fiance, I always say boyfriend. When I met him, it was a complete shift, like a 180 shift in my life. And I didn't realize, it's also coincidentally also with the pandemic. So I think, one, you're sitting a lot with yourself, but also when I looked at him, or when we talked, it was just like I had found someone who knew me at a deeper level. So some of the questions he would ask would just hit me at a deeper level. And a lot of times I found myself projecting a lot of things. Like when I started my healing journey, I was like, oh my God, I'm projecting all of this on him. And every single time I looked at him, like, I would interact with him differently than I interacted with anybody else in my life at the time. And that's when I started to realize, like, oh my God, you've come into my life to teach me so much of myself and what's in my heart. But sometimes you don't see it in that moment. And it's hard, and it's a hard journey, but it's been beautiful. Maybe he would tell you a different story.
How did you know that he was teaching you something? Were you already on your healing journey? Like, how did you conceptualize that thing unless you were already in personal development?
Yeah. So when we first met, I didn't realize that. And then just literally maybe 4 or 5 months after we met, we just kept butting heads. Like, first it was beautiful. Our relationship was beautiful. Then we kept butting heads, and he's been on his healing journey for a long time. So there were certain things that he would say that I just didn't understand. And he would leave like little clues that just led me to find signs. And so then things would just start to appear. And then that's how I got started on the journey. And then when I was in the journey, I was like, oh my God, this is insane. And it was funny because there were so many signs that basically told me that this is the one for you, but I would totally ignore it. And I was like, no, that's not true. And they would just keep popping in my face. And yeah, so I'm grateful for this relationship and how it's just evolved and how I've evolved and how he's evolved. And I always said that when I find someone that I love, it's like we are individual sparks, and then together we ignite a fire, but you don't lose your individual spark. You lose your individual light, and instead you're helping each other kind of shine. And so I'm really happy that I found someone that does that with me.
What a great analogy.
Thanks.
So what was your first like run-in? Was it a video, church, a book, like a class?
I think, you know what, funny enough, I think it was Rebecca, actually. It was a group of us. We used to always do random tarot, and I was always spending time at the creator of the tarot cards. I was always spending time with her, and Rebecca would be there from time to time. And I think and sometimes Robin would come, like my fiance would come also. So I think it was just the conversations. It would just be something. It would be either a card or something and then I would take that question and kind of ponder on it. And then sometimes I would talk to him. Sometimes he would leave bits, and then and then I think it was like journaling. It was constantly journaling. And then somehow Instagram started showing me, like, I remember it was somehow I found this one clip of this girl named Susie Battis. And then I found out, and then my whole body got goosebumps as I was like watching her story. And I was like, okay, I need to contact this woman. So then I was looking through, and then she was holding this class called Alive OS, which was how to change your operating system. And so it was like kind of like an intro into this whole thing. And so I was like, okay, I want to sign up. So they had a scholarship. I was trying to take the scholarship. And then I didn't get it, but I was like, it doesn't matter. I'm going to make this investment. And I remember turning to Robin, like in bed, like, okay, listen, I'm going to do this. It's going to be a little bit, it's a lot more money than I would have wanted to, but I feel like I really need to do this. There's something about it. And so then I just started, and that's when everything just kind of came together from there. And then Rebecca would do a beautiful way of introducing me to the right people at the right time. And then, just slowly things started to evolve.
When you look back to like you gave the example of there was a point in the beginning of your relationship where there was some rockiness. Comparing that to the way that you interact now, what is like the biggest things that have changed in the way that you communicate?
So one of the key things I think that differentiated us from the beginning was that we had established honesty. We had said that no matter what happens, no matter what you do, no matter what mistakes you make, you're always going to be honest. That was always key, and that was always there. I think from there, it was more of a cultivation of, for me, it was understanding what love is, because I always had conceptions of what love was. based on Bollywood movies, based on what society told me, based on how I romanticized it. So I think when I started, and he is he's a lot more experienced, and so he would kind of help me tackle those. And so as I did that, it was embodying what I wanted out of a relationship. It was understanding the values that I wanted. And when I understood my own values and my own beliefs, and I realized what love truly meant and how to embody that, then subsequently how I spoke to him, how I viewed our relationship, how I understood what, being engaged really is, that really changed the way we interacted and the way we communicated. Because I feel like once you start to embody what you want, it immediately seeds into everything in your life. And your partner ends up mirroring similar to what you want and what you do. And I think it's also understanding, or coming to an understanding from both sides, that we're here to do our best to see if this is something that we really want. And as long as we're committed, then, nothing is really hard. It's just something that we need to go through and to see it to the other side. And so I think that commitment to each other, and really, I don't know, I think it's really interesting because I feel like both of us have just realized that we don't want anyone else. Like whatever hardships we go through, whatever there's present, it's just kind of like we're here and we're here to try it out until the very end, until we know, like, okay, this just isn't healthy for us. Okay, now we have to let go.
This concept of nothing is really hard. I feel like people will disagree with that, who are maybe not on a healing journey. Who are maybe not on a healing journey.
Yeah. Okay, so let me switch it.
What does that mean?
Yeah. For me, it's switching it to, there's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. There's no such thing as obstacles. There's only lessons. So nothing to me is hard. When I say that, it means everything is a lesson. There's something to come out of this. And at the same time, I think it's also because we both reached a level in which we understood we don't need each other. We choose each other. So we're choosing to be here. We're choosing to work on it. And so, yeah, it may seem hard here, but look at what's happened. Look at the beauty that's appeared every single time we've gone through something. And we've each individually learned so much about ourselves. And so that's what I mean when I say nothing is hard. It's hard work. It's hard work. Sometimes it gets real shitty, but at the same time, it's like, number one, I know that I've learned a lot in this relationship. And if it comes to a point where this ends, it's going to suck, but I'll be okay. But at the same time, I also know that right now I choose to be with him. As I wake up today, it's a choice. And my choice is still, works with my action. And I feel congruent when I say it and when I do it and when I speak it. So that to me is like, okay, if it feels congruent here, then there's nothing stopping. And I think once you realize that everything is a lesson and everything is just, there's something that Bruce Lee said that stuck with me. He said, any knowledge is self-knowledge. And I think that's so true. So anything that you go through is a different type of knowledge, and it brings you back to yourself. It helps you understand no matter what it is and no matter what area of life it is. So for me, that's what sticks by, and that's what I echo.
Yeah. I love this concept that you're talking about as far as you're with somebody or spending time with somebody because you want to be, not because you have to be. I think that there's so many relationships in today's day and age where individuals are staying in a relationship that's inauthentic to what they know they should be in or who they should be with because of excuses. There's kids, there's money, there's ailing parents, there's all these reasons as to why they need to stay with that person or be with that person versus, where they authentically want to be in life. Now, obviously there's circumstances that everybody's, and that's the awesome thing about it is you can know that and then still decide to do that. But there's a difference between that and then just not knowing that you have a choice.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that also comes from really understanding self-love. So I think it's really funny because I feel like there's so many quotes out there that if you really understood the deeper level of it, it would change your life. But instead it becomes these like posters that you see everywhere, and then it loses its meaning. And I think language is really hard in that way, because I feel like there's so many concepts that you can't actually define. It's all experiential. So I think what we don't really talk about in society is what really is self-love, and the fact of you have to understand how deep your own cup is. I think we always talk about like, oh, you need to set boundaries and I feel like that comes out of fear, when if you really understood how deep your cup is and how much you're willing to give yourself, then you'll really understand how much you can give to others. And then if you're in a relationship where it's inauthentic, unless you cultivate the fact that strength in you, that trust in you, that no matter what, I believe in myself, I can do this. And sometimes, yeah, it's really, really hard and you have to go really, really deep. But once you cultivate that power, that self-love, there's nothing that stops you. There's really nothing. I can't even describe it. It's just this pure trust and just this inexplainable resilience and strength that just reverberates in every cell in your body because you know yourself that much. But everyone talks about self-love in this way of like, fake self-care, of this whole like, I'm going to take a bath and everything's going to be wonderful. Or I'm going to like, no, like real self-care is doing that hard work, is changing up those habits. It's, realizing and looking out in your life and being like, oh my God, that's a pattern. Why is that happening? And really deep down and do that, dive in and do that work. It's hard, but the only reason people do it is because when you come out, even just a little bit, even that tiniest little amount of work, when you come out of it, you feel this peace and this calmness and this like serenity, this grace that just comes over your body. And when you interact with people, people notice that you just want to keep going. You get addicted to that, and that is the best addiction you can ever have.
Definitely. The whole concept as far as taking a bath is so funny because I have that same exact thought. It's so not what it actually is. But again, we're all on a different path or a different level as far as where we're at in our healing journey.
Yes.
And for some people might be level 1 because maybe they don't take the time to do that, but they actually want to be.
Yeah.
So,
100%. I mean, everyone's on their own journey and you have to respect everyone for where they are. And I think that's a beautiful concept. And if that's what works for you, that's what works for you. I just hope you take it deeper and from taking it, creating that time for you, then you move it into something else. And maybe you just add a little bit of journaling or whatever it is, just so that you can explore yourself more.
Yeah. I think a good way of figuring out on whether or not that is actually part of your healing journey is what are the feelings and or days after, how are they better, right? Because if you're on a healing journey as far as your actual mental and emotional health, there's huge shifts in the way you show up for your world as far as anxiety, sadness, depression. If you're taking a bath and the moment you're done with the bath, you get out and you're still sad and depressed, that's not the right self-care. That's just not it. There's something else. So it's digging down and reading, doing the workshop, showing up for classes that are actually teaching you exactly what you're talking about as far as just showing up differently, realizing that obstacles are lessons, really conceptualizing what that means for your specific life and your specific circumstances, and then waking up the next day and feeling better and lighter versus a bath.
Yeah, correct. And I think it's important for everyone to recognize that you're doing the best that you can with the resource that you have in that specific time. So don't get hard on yourself. Just be there, be present, and just try to take in whatever you can at that moment. And that's enough. There's no need for you to look at everybody else and be like, I need to be here because it's like, I don't understand. Oh my God. Like, no, just arrive in your own time. That's it. You know, you'll get there.
Yes. And listening to stuff like this podcast, you know, and the women that come on here. And if you're grabbing just a nugget of information every single time you listen, I mean, that in itself is self-care.
Yep.
Definitely. What's the number one lesson that you've learned about life in general?
Ooh, I think that the number one lesson has been if you come from a place of love, everything will shift. I think the concept of love is so misunderstood. We always say that, or I feel like people keep talking about how fear is the opposite of love. And I don't agree with that. I think there is no opposite to love. I feel that if you truly understand the purity and the depth of love, everything shifts. Because when you bring in that energy, that vibration, nothing can stop you. And you start to realize how everything is so connected. And you see the purity in people, the purity in whatever circumstances that exist around the world and in your orbit and in that moment. And you just, there's a strength that comes with it. There's a grace that comes with it. There's a courage that comes with it. Like everything just kind of follows through with that. So if you can really understand that, cultivate that, and every choice you make, you come from that love vibration instead of that fear vibration, things just completely shift.
What would you say to women listening today who are struggling with setting boundaries?
Okay. I think the first thing to understand is, what are you giving? What are you giving and what are you receiving? And when you come out of that situation or with that person, do you feel drained? Do you feel tired? Because that's not how you should be feeling. Every single time you interact with someone, you should come out feeling more energized. You should be ready to go on to the next thing. There are so many days where I don't get enough sleep, but after I meet somebody, I feel ready, like so energized, like I had just slept, even though we had a great discussion and I didn't sleep at all. But once you start to understand that and you start to realize that creating a boundary is like when you create a boundary, you're literally telling yourself, I'm a priority in my life. I'm a priority in my life because I am just as important as everybody else in my life. And if you look at boundaries in that way, then hopefully it'll shift your perspective. And you can see that it's not like you're trying to lay a fence and somebody can't, it's like, oh my God, I'm creating this boundary and I'm never going to get to see this person, or like this person's going to be mad at me. It's not that. It's literally you looking at yourself and being like, you know what? I love you, but I love myself more. And remembering that people come and go. Everyone is here for you, and you meet them, you learn a lesson. Maybe they make you smile. Maybe they teach you a lesson. It doesn't matter. People come and go. There are small little stories in your book. But a person who's going to continue with you, as long as you keep growing and they support that, that's beautiful. But if they're only supporting you because they want you to be held back with them, then you need to recognize that and release that, because that's not for you.
Yeah. Can you talk about a boundary that you've had to set?
Yeah. I seek validation from others for a very long time. And learning how to put that boundary and not letting that get crossed, super hard. It took me a while because, there's always something nagging at me. I always wanted to be everywhere at once. I wanted to be, YOLO. I wanted to be that girl that was friends with everyone. And once I understood what the people pleasing was really doing and the external validation was really doing, because when I audited my own behavior and I realized like, yo, this isn't gonna cut it. Like it's not working for you. That's when it took. I mean, it was like little steps, but then when I started putting it on, and I was like, listen, you know what? Hotel quarantine, best for someone like me. 14 days. When I realized I couldn't interact with people, and I realized how much my energy had changed, how my body had changed, how I was feeling. After that, I was like, yo, okay. So now I realize I need this. And I don't ever want to move from feeling like that. And every single time I tried and I felt a different way, I was like, yo, no. We got to go back. And then, it took probably 3 times. It's 3 times the pattern. And then I was like, okay, like this is solid now. It's not changing.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
World of difference.
World of difference, especially when you release that validation. Oh, yeah. No stress.
Yeah.
No stress.
I want you to tell us more about the book that you authored.
Oh, okay. So I was working at CNN 2008, I think, or maybe 2007 in Atlanta. And I met one of these bookers, and she told me I'm writing a book. We're composing it of 40 different American Muslim women under the age of 40, and I want your story. And I was like, yeah, fine. And to be honest, when I wrote my story, I really didn't think anyone was going to read this book. I really didn't. I really was like, no one's going to read this book. This was just a way for me to articulate what I felt I was going through, and that was it. I submitted it in college, I think by senior year of college. So submitted it. My story, funnily enough, was all about identity, because when I was growing up, I had 2 birth certificates. I had one that was called Sarah and one that was called Sarah. And I don't know why the hospital didn't count how many certificates versus babies. I don't know why, but I have 2. And they were spelled differently. And one was more Muslim oriented, one was more Americanized. And so that echoed in my life, because I never felt like I wasn't American enough to be American. I wasn't Indian or Muslim enough to be Indian and Muslim. So it just led to this duality, and I didn't really know how to balance it. And I had reached this level in which I decided that I was going to be Sarah, but it was going to be spelled like Sarah. And later I had to actually legalize that. And but the concept, the story was all about this identity, this struggle. And I revealed things that I hadn't revealed to people close to me growing up. So when I wrote it, I submitted it, I published it, and I was like, okay, it's fine. Like, no one's going to read it. I was in Pakistan, and I was flying back. And I remember the day I landed, because that was the day Osama bin Laden had been assassinated. And that was the day that my editor was like, I'm releasing the book. And we were releasing the book like the next day or whatever. And I was like, what? And it blew up. And then everyone in my community, it was on like the Ismaili book of the month. So everybody was reading it. And my mom was freaking out because I was revealing personal stories. And it, interestingly enough, created a conversation within my own community where we discuss things, where I was like, yeah, this was the truth of how I grew up. And maybe you guys didn't see it this way. And you didn't see how the behavior impacted me, but this is where it's at. And if you continue doing this, then how are you shaping your own daughters? How are you shaping the next generation? So it opened up doors, but it was, I mean, if you read my bio in that book, you would be laughing, because I really didn't expect anyone. Like, everyone wrote great bios, and my bio was like, I'm a nerd and I love reading and I like coffee. Like, I really didn't think it was going to blow up. I really just thought it was a way for me to release what I needed to release. But it would foreshadow the fact that I would need to change my name legally. And it would foreshadow me writing an anthology of poems all about identity, just a couple months ago. So it was like this full circle moment of me really aligning and understanding that everyone doesn't need to understand you. And as long as you come from a place that's authentic to you, then someone else will resonate with it. And that's okay.
How crazy.
Yeah. Like every single time, I remember that moment when I sent in this anthology of poems to see if I would win a prize. I remember looking back and having that Steve Jobs moment where he's like, oh, if you look back, you'll see all the dots connect. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. I just felt like so much. There's just been this whole circle, this whole journey, this whole part of the healing that's just kind of come to an end. And now I'm starting completely fresh. And it is crazy hard, but it is so beautiful. Like,
I want to know what your dad said.
For the book?
Yeah.
Well, my dad kept silent. My dad didn't say anything. So my dad interacts in different ways. So now he says that he's really proud of me and he sees and recognizes everything that I did. At the time when that book was published, it was 2010. And at the time, my relationship with my parents was very strenuous. So it was more like people were saying, oh my God, your daughter did a wonderful job. And then he would echo it. But they come from a background of we don't share our personal stories. We don't get vulnerable with large pieces, with the world. We don't get vulnerable with the world. And so that was different time. Now he's like, I'm very proud of you. I love you. I really, you're doing something different, but I think it's beautiful and I'm here for you. And that relationship shifted when I started doing my healing work and when I, like all of that. And so it's beautiful. And I think even the way with my mom, like my mom was really upset because I had used her name. I had said, this is what happened with my mom. And so she was really upset because I think some things she didn't see how I took it, right? Because you don't always see another person's perspective.
Yeah.
So in that way, I think she felt like she was being outed. And then I was like, no, this is just my truth. And so now even that has shifted. So at the time, it was really just touch and go with me and my parents. But as time has gone on, I've created a whole new relationship with them, and we're best friends, and it's very different. Obviously, they'll say things that now can just slide off, which before it would hurt. But now I'm just like, the first time that it just slid off, I was like, I'm sorry, can you say that again? let me feel that feeling. And so, I mean, it's beautiful. I'm incredibly thankful because I have Asian parents that say, I love you. Mm-hmm. And that's not a lot of people have that, but I have that. And that's something that I definitely hold on to and I cherish.
How amazing.
Yeah.
What a story. I have that same issue with my family because I tell a lot of personal things. And the way that I've always explained it is I never tell my story to bring shame upon the characters. I tell my story in order to inspire other people who are going through similar circumstances in order to give them hope and inspiration to make it through. Because I think so many people are dealing with the same issues. I mean, we're all dealing with the same human issues over and over and over again. It's just finding the people who have a very similar story to lean on. Mm-hmm. But the only way to lean on that story is if the person tells the story.
Yeah. Yep.
So you have to. It's like you have to tell the story, and it's no shame against the backstory of who. Right. We're inspiring other people to move forward faster. You know,
100%. I agree.
And it's one of the conversations I have with my son. My son is 19 years old. And although I feel like I did an amazing job at parenting him, I tell him all the time that there will probably be stuff at some point as you're moving into your career or relationships that pop up where you realize that I caused you serious trauma. And I want you to be able to like go to a somebody and talk about it in whatever way that you need to talk about it, or shout it from the rooftops, whatever that is, in order to use your story and heal from your own story of what I've done. I mean, that's like a real thing. We all do the best we can with what we have.
Yeah.
And then they hopefully have it a little bit better than the last, but there's still stuff, we're all human.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's the idea that you know that nothing can be perfect. No matter what you do, nothing can be perfect. And also I feel like when you have a child, that child is also part of your healing process, because they end up teaching you things that you didn't even realize. And so I feel like everything kind of levels up your awareness, and you just keep, and I think as long as you kind of keep that open mind and you don't have any judgment, which is, yes, it's hard. But if you really understand that people are not their behaviors, that you are not what you do, you're so much more. And as long as you keep that in and you really understand that, then you can't hold yourself back. You're like, that wasn't me. That's just what I was doing in that moment. But now I know better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to give a huge shout out to those that are still watching live. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with Sarah and I. If you're watching on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're watching us at, so that we can send you some love on whatever platform you're on. But I want to ask Sarah, as we start to wrap up here, what do you do for all the humans? What do you do to give back in your business and your clients, or whatever you're doing right now in your world? And then where can people find you?
Perfect. So I created this coaching and training company called Arrive in Time. So it's where you come as you are and you rewrite your relationship with yourself, and you step into your personal power, and you know that you will arrive in however you want to and in your authentic self in your own time. So you can reach out on Instagram at arrive.intime, or my personal Instagram profile, which is at Miss Kajani, MS Kajani. And I offer one-on-one coaching, and I'm also doing neurolinguistic programming certifications.
Beautiful. Can you give me your favorite Instagram where you want people to follow you, so I can put it at the bottom?
Yeah, arrive.intime.
Arrive.intime.
In time. Yes. Yep. Yay.
Fantastic. And then why do you do what you do?
Ooh, okay. Well, one, I've realized the true power of getting to know yourself and how that changes the world around you. So that's why when I started my own journey and I started reflecting on the modalities that worked for me, I realized that one of the key ones was neurolinguistic programming. And so that's just kind of like, neurolinguistic programming is a program guide for your mind. So just like when you're on autopilot and a pilot has to know the function, the strategies, and how all the keys work when they're taking their plane off autopilot. It's the same way when you want to go off autopilot, you need to know how your mind works. You need to know the processes, what's your unconscious, what's the functionality of your mind, how does it work with your body. So that's what neurolinguistic programming does. It's a really great way of bringing in that awareness. And that was one of the biggest tools for me in my journey. And so I believe that you need to teach a man how to fish so you can feed him for a lifetime. So that's why since neurolinguistic programs is a set of tools and techniques, that's why I started doing certification trainings, so that you don't have to come back to me. You have it all there, and I can give it to you, and you can take it and you go, and you can always contact me. I give you lifetime support. But the whole point is you don't have to keep coming back. But just in case you're not ready for that, then I work with you one-on-one, and I use the modalities that were effective to me. So we work on your mindset. We work with your body, because you need that mind-body connection. You need, your body keeps score. Your body does not lie. So if it's not congruent, if you can't walk the walk and talk the talk, it's not going to work. So that's what we work on. And then I bring in other modalities. If you're spiritual, then, we do some spiritual work. So I try to work with each of the different auras, or just different health, like mental health, physical health, emotional health, spiritual health. We work through all of that and kind of create like a holistic approach, so that you're stepping into your true power, and you can then light up the world and hopefully light it up a lot brighter than I'm doing. Because I want you to soar, and I want you to soar way past me. That would be amazing. And so I feel like, similar to you, Sabrina, I feel like everyone's story has something to teach you. And I've always thought about the fact that every single time I meet a person, it's either a chapter in my novel, it's a small little snippet, it's whatever, but it's part of my book of life. And I value all of that. And so, yeah, every single time I meet someone, whoever comes into my life, you're teaching me so much more. And I get to teach you, but I love that we get to have that exchange.
100.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
For waking up so early for us and hanging out with myself and all the individuals that are live with us now, and for those that will watch this on the replay. So I so appreciate you taking some time. For those of you watching, if you resonate with Sarah and all the goodness that she shared today, make sure you check her out on her Insta, arrive.intime. Follow and or drop into her DMs. We love to connect people here on this platform in order to make sure that we all continue to rise. Any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I guess I just want to say thank you. Thank you for those who are watching now. Thank you for those who will watch. And I do hope my words resonated with you, and I can't wait to see you shine. And please send me some love. I would love to just talk to you. You don't have to book anything. Just talking is wonderful, because I think there's always something that we can learn and grow from.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on this podcast, Her Version. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new in this podcast and like content like this, make sure you subscribe, follow, and like. If you have a story to share, be sure to reach out to me at hernation.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people